Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Island families. We hope you enjoy this evening's edition. Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney. For the last several shows, we have been attempting to try and provide information on some of the programs that the Institute offers to working Rhode Islanders. All these programs are really being offered in an attempt for people to be able to recognize programs that, if they get involved, can improve their lives and consequently the lives of the families that they support. This program is the second in a series, and it is on the Teacher Assistant Program, a program that is relatively new. The Institute's been around for 35 years. This program has only been around for the last 3 years. And our guests this evening are Sylvia Melgar, who is the Executive Assistant at the Institute, and Audrey Hurst, who is the coordinator of the program at the Institute. She's actually a teacher assistant for the Cranston School Department, has been for a while, and is an expert in the content. So much so that she designed the program with us. So I want to welcome you, ladies. Thank you for taking the time, because I think this is a program that has made a difference as well as the other programs, but it's probably one of the newest ones, and I want to start, Audrey, with you. I think I called you in a panic. No, not really in a panic. I called you 3 years ago and said, we're going to offer a program for teacher assistants. And I got a call from a group of, from a union in Warwick, a group of bus drivers wanted the option of being able to become certified as TAs. You found the way that we designed the program. After the panic and after I called you, tell me what we did.
Well, Bob, we got together and we developed a program. These were currently people who were working in a school system, and then they needed the training to get, because they were privatizing, to get into the classrooms, and they needed the teacher assistant certification. So we designed a program with my background as a teacher assistant and an English teacher, a nurse, and a math teacher. So we started an 8-week program for this group, and then we got our RIDE approval, and we went through an extensive program with RIDE application process that was approved after some modifications. And the training went very well, and it's been going on for 3 years.
So tell me the components.
All right, so the components are the role of a teacher assistant, which is the day-to-day working with the students, and a very important part is the collaboration between principals and the teachers and the other staff members in the school. Then we have a segment on managing antisocial behavior, which is an AFT program that I was trained in. It's part of the ER&D training, which is the Educational Research and Dissemination Program, and that's a very extensive part of the class, because a good part of teacher assistance is managing antisocial behavior. That's a lot of behavior work. Then we have the acting out cycle, which is a fancy name basically for a temper tantrum and how to control that. We have a session on bullying. Then we actually bring in a nurse teacher from the school department who has 3 components to the course. One is allergy awareness, and she does training on EpiPens. She does a section on universal precautions, blood pathogens, and health and safety in the classroom. And because there's toileting involved with some of these students, and there's a lot of bodily fluids, and it's really OSHA training and knowledge of what is acceptable and how to handle yourself and safety precautions. And her other component is proper body mechanics, how to handle, lift students who are, whether they're mobile in wheelchairs, walkers, and you do come across that often. So, and it's just lifting yourself and the student. And then after, that's the real teacher assistant training part. And then for the para-pro test, which is something you have to complete and pass in order to get your certification. There's 2 classes of English prep, a reading and a writing, and it's education. There's the teacher discusses the English parts of whether it's grammar, and then reading, and then we do practice tests, and then there's 2 nights of math prep, where it's from basic math up until pretty much geometry and lower level algebra, and practice tests with that too. So it's a well-rounded course.
I know the information that I've received in feedback from students is that they not just appreciate the content, but it's very real. Oftentimes they come back and the content in the class does what it's supposed to do, whether it's lifting a student or the safety issues. And I think that those safety issues are important for the student, it's important for their parents, and it's important for you as a TA and the teacher in the classroom. RIDE has a very rigorous set of standards that need to be met. So when we did our application, even the recent one, there were new pieces that were added. And I know that you attended some seminars that you brought the information in and we modified the program. Talk to me about some of these changes that take place and what do they do to improve the program?
Well, we've done a little bit more of the, I do a lot of my component is telling what actually goes on in the classroom, and I never use names because confidentiality is a big part of anybody in the school department. But I do real-life situations actually prepare people for what's coming. A lot of these people who are taking the course have no idea what really goes on in the classroom. There are physical students, there are a lot of behavior issues. It's not just dealing with a typical student. There are a lot of special needs students. And we really need to see, you need knowledge of what goes on in the community. We do a little bit about community problems, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling, what affects the students at home. They bring that into the classroom. And I'm trying to prepare these people and that want to be working with the students to actually understand and acknowledge and try to help what's going on at home as well as you can. You're obligated, if a child tells me that there's a real serious infraction going on, whether it's abuse, I tell the people who want to be TAs that they have to report it. It's your obligation. You are protected. You need to really know what's going on and ask probing questions, but it's not the TA's job to really address it on her own. If someone tells me there's an abuse issue, I try to talk to them. I go to my teacher, I go to my nurse, I go to my principal. And a lot of the confidentiality is a big part of what we talk about. The bullying issue, most schools have bullying policies now. We spend about a half a class on bullying because it is a very big issue in the schools right now. And there are bullying policies, and I try to impress upon these adult students what is going on and how to deal with it.
I think that whether you're a teacher in a classroom, and I spent more than 20 years in public schools, it is not just a job. It's a passion. It's a career choice. I think you have to be a very special person. I think that people who work with people have to have a set of skills. They have to have a passion for it. And I know you do. I know both your work teaching TAs and in your role as a TA, it's very evident that is a calling for you. I think that it's really important for people to realize that when they enter the program, we want them to be successful, but we also want them to know what's expected of them. So if halfway through the program somebody says, this is not for me, that's a good choice.
Right.
Tell me, Sylvia, about the enrollment for the program. We run 4 classes a year?
Yes,
When do they run?
January, April, September, and November. So what we have been doing lately is that we've been contacting a lot of the human resources in a lot of the schools throughout the state. That way they can also suggest or forward the information over to anyone that would like to take the course, and then we also have it on our website. So on there it just gives like a brief overview of the program and then our contact information, and then when they call the office they usually will speak with me, and then I'll answer any of the questions that they have, and then I will send them over the registration form, the complete overview of the program, and send them all of the information that they need regarding where the orientation will be held if they need to attend the orientation, where the classes will be held, the addresses, and any other questions that they need.
Now, we run 4 programs a year, but you and Audrey have made a change to the program delivery that is going to take place in the program that's coming up.
Yes, I know that it was mentioned that there's some schools that are hiring are in need of teacher assistants. So what we did was we broke it into 2 different classes where the first 2 weeks will be for students that have associate degrees or higher, which they will do the first few components that Audrey had mentioned, and they will not be required to take their parapro assessment. So they will do the 12 hours of classroom time and then the 3-hour shadowing. So once that is completed, they will send over the information to me, and then I'll be able to give them their certificates, and they'll be on their way to apply for jobs. And then the second part of it would be for any other students with high school degrees, GEDs, or anything else, that they would come in and then do the complete course, where they will have to take the parapro assessment and then complete 24 hours of the class time along with the 3-hour shadowing.
Now, the parapro is a national assessment. It's guaranteeing a level of math, English literacy, and reading ability because you're working in a classroom. When people call, I know you do an orientation. Tell me about the orientation so they'll know what to expect.
So at orientation, we'll ask them to bring all of their information, which would be their ID, their high school diploma or any degree. Also with maybe if they do end up deciding to take the class after the orientation, their payment. They will be there for at least an hour to an hour and a half because they do have to take 2 preliminary tests just for reading and writing and their math skills. So it's a very quick 25 to 50 questions where they will take it, and then at the end it's not really, what level they're at. It's just more of us to have an understanding of where they stand, just so that we don't have them take the course and then not be able to pass. So we always kind of look at that part for them.
So you're looking at a base level of reading and math to ensure that students can be successful in the program.
Yes.
Yes.
So students can call and enroll. They'll talk to you. You'll do the orientation. Then they attend the class with you. I think you said that you're the lead instructor and coordinate the program. We have a math and a English instructor. We have a school nurse that comes in, does the component. And then they have to go into a classroom for a number of hours and have a documented resume or a documented kind of a narrative on what took place in a reflection.
Yes.
And one of the things that I'm more curious about, we've been getting calls lately from school districts saying, look, we need a substitute TA or we have jobs available, which is a nice rounding out part of the program. I know that in Cranston School Department, you've had situations where HR called you and said, there's a job opening or we need a substitute.
Correct.
So you've been very good in being able to direct students to do that?
Yes. We've had, there is a need for teacher assistants. Maybe they may not be getting hired full-time, but they're a huge need for substitutes at this point. And once you do your shadowing, you have your BCI check, which the schools will not let you into without a BCI check. So we're asking our students to get the BCI check while they're doing the classroom work so that when they're ready to shadow, they're all set. And then the day after they're finished, they pass their test or they're finished with the course, they can get their certificate and apply to different cities and towns. Yeah. And start working. And
I think that's something new since the very start of the program, where we're asking students to be prepared with a background check before they actually go into the classroom to do the shadowing and to do the reflection on their experience.
Right.
Okay. Well, ladies, I want to thank you for coming this evening. I think that it's an excellent program. Thank you to you, Audrey, and the staff that work with you. Sylvia, we couldn't run the program without you. You make sure that everybody has what they need so that we don't set up expectations for people to come in and plan on taking the program and they're either missing on documentation or, it's not always happening, but sometimes we screen and their math or English level is not at a level. We redirect them until they're able to bring it up and come back and take the course and be successful.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you for participating. This evening's show was aimed at information being provided for our teacher assistant program. And as I mentioned in the program, we do get telephone calls from school districts asking us if we have access to names of people who would be available to substitute or available to apply for a permanent job, which really does create for the Institute the opportunity for a full-rounded program. Having said that, I want to thank you for your attention this evening, for tuning in and watching this segment of the program on our Teacher Assistant Program, and we look forward to offering you more information on more programs at a later time. Thank you.
How you doing? Good to see you again. See you too.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Ladies and gentlemen, Brother Dan Broussard.
It's a great sight here, looking out and seeing everyone here joined in solidarity in a sea of red. I want to thank everybody for coming out here today and supporting us in this fight against this disgusting and heartless company. Unions standing together as one is the way, and the only way, that unions are going to survive today in corporate America. I would like to thank Senior Deputy Majority Leader, Representative Kenneth Marshall. I would like to thank the Mobilization Committee, especially Keith Link, who is our chairman of the committee, who has put on this whole venue tonight. The AFL-CIO for helping us get the word out to everyone. Also, Jobs with Justice has been very instrumental by conducting phone banks and getting the word out to the public. We would also like to thank the Providence Central Labor Council. Today, we may all be here to join as one in our fight against Verizon. However, there is a much bigger fight that we are all a part of. This fight is about unions against corporate America. This is about the endless attack on the middle class and the hard-working people across this country who make this country work. Union members used to plan on their children growing up and following in their shoes to become firemen, nurses, postal workers, and involved in the building trades. This trend is no more. Unions are falling all over the country, and somebody has to stand up and say enough is enough. Brothers and sisters, is anyone here tired of getting mistreated and ready to say, I've had enough? If this doesn't get you pissed off, let's think about a couple of other facts. Verizon has profited $1 billion for the last 18 months straight. Lowell McAdam pockets $18.3 million in 2014. For anybody who's not good at math, that's $8,636 per hour. Instead, they'd rather give away our jobs to India, Mexico, Costa Rica, Philippines, and the Dominican Republic. Verizon has seen a 52% increase over their $12.8 billion in 2011 to $19.6 billion in 2014.
On your backs.
From 1979 to 2012, the 1% incomes grew by 181%. Put that in contrast. In that same period, the rest of the country saw an increase of 2.6%. 47 wealthy Americans own more than half of the United States population. That's more than 160 million people, or 60 million households. In America, the middle class has failed to enjoy the same growth in income as that country's top 1%. What would have happened if every household on Main Street enjoyed that same income growth? The typical American middle-class household would be earning $156,000. The typical American middle-class household, that's the same line. In an age of galloping inequality, it's worth remembering that the middle-class people, rather than the rich, lead the way to growth and prosperity. To achieve this, people need stable sources of income and a hope for the future. They must have an understanding that when they invest their hard-won skills and knowledge, there's a long-term payoff. Unfortunately, that trend towards insecure, disposable job is undercutting these necessities. Contributing towards this is offshoring, globalization, weaker unions, automation, and deregulation. New corporate emphasis on maximizing shareholder value is the name of the game. This requires long-term thinking and investment, stable, high-quality careers that bring value to employers and workers. Not only do we need to fight cohesively against corporate America, we need to stand up for ourselves. Last page, I promise. We all share in this fight together. We have to stand together, hold our heads high as union members, and remember, our strength comes from standing together with all of our brothers and sisters. All of our brothers and sisters in organized labor. So brothers and sisters from all labor organizations across the state, are you ready to stand together and fight together for what is ours? Remember, victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting. Thank you. With that being said, I'm going to call up our first speaker here tonight, the Secretary-Treasurer of the UFCW Local 328, Jim Riley.
You!
Thank you, my brothers and sisters. I'm proud and honored to be here tonight, as I was in 2011, to speak on behalf of the greatest telecommunication workers in America, the Verizon workers. The workers, who J.D. Powers rates as having the highest network quality of all the national providers in America. No, they didn't earn that. You did. The workers who have delivered over 10 consecutive double-digit quarters of operating income and earning growth for Verizon. They didn't do that. You did. And the workers have generated over $10 billion in profits last year. They didn't do that. You did. That's a damn good report card Anybody would be proud as hell to have workers like you that generate those kind of profits. So how does your company reward your excellence?
With a shaft.
Thank you, you're correct. By asking for huge cuts in your retirement security, for asking for further increases in employee health care costs, by virtually eliminating job security in your contract, and by trying to replace good hometown jobs with cheap labor. What is this? Some kind of backwards, bizarro world? This is how they reward you for the remarkable work that you've done. What kind of a world is this? This is insane.
It's the new CEO. He's got his head in the dark side.
Well, exactly. You are in the dark side right now. And by the way, when they're not spending their time screwing their own workers, they're spending their time screwing the taxpayers.
Yeah.
By not paying their fair share of taxes in this country, and by stashing $1.8 billion in offshore accounts. Unbelievable.
Yeah?
Poor Verizon. Poor Verizon. They say they don't have enough money to give their workers a fair contract. 39,000 workers from Massachusetts to Virginia. I guess it must be tough to try to make it on $1 billion profit every month. When you've got to pay enormous executive salaries, buy mansions, and pay your debts. This company is Looney Tunes. I've never seen anything like it. Verizon needs to value the worth of its employees. By stop this crazy bargaining, bargain in good faith, and stop making concessions to its workers. Thank you and good luck, Verizon workers. We're all behind you.
We'll see.
Thank you, brother. Next, we're going to call up the Senior Deputy Majority Leader, Representative Ken Marshall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to stand with you because this is a fight worth fighting. You represent the foundation that this country was built upon. And without good education, good apprenticeship programs, and good investment back in their employees, this foundation will crumble. So ladies and gentlemen, Dan Moran, President, Steve Murphy, Business Manager. I was invited here by a good friend and one of your brothers, Eddie Stewart. He stands with you today. He invited me here to be with you today, to stand with you and stand alongside you in your fight for fair wages and fair representation and reinvestment in your workforce by your corporate entity, Verizon. I want to let you know that from a Senior Deputy Majority Leader's position at the State House, I sit alongside the Speaker and the Leader, and we certainly recognize the value that you bring to this state. And under this leadership, the unions will no longer be the excuse for the shortfalls of Rhode Island. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here tonight. I wish you the best. I know you'll succeed because your heart and soul are in it. Keep up the fight.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.
please do join me in welcoming Liz Schuler, Secretary Treasurer of the AFL-CIO.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Maureen. I thought that was supposed to be short, but I appreciate it. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Greetings from Washington, D.C. It's a great city, but wow, is it dysfunctional, right? It's good to be in the real world every once in a while. It's been fun watching kind of the antics of the last few weeks, right? With Republicans and the leadership change and all of the interesting things happening. But I want to thank George Nee. You've put together an amazing team. Such a wonderful, I mean, this labor movement, as I look out, the solidarity that I see is truly remarkable. And I want to thank you for your leadership and Maureen as well. Top drawer, give them a hand, please. And I saw Paul McDonald earlier from the CLC here in Providence. Thank you, Paul. And I don't think John's here today from, I always have trouble pronouncing this, Woonsocket? Thank you. I don't have an accent either. But really what you've built here in Rhode Island is absolutely a model. And I don't say that to every state fed, actually, that I go to. You might think I do, but I really don't, but because I truly mean it. What you've done here in terms of organizing, and workers are really on the move, and you're standing together at the bargaining table, and you are forming strategic community partnerships, which were alluded to earlier, and really just helping build better lives for working people in the state of Rhode Island. So I want to just say thank you, thank you, thank you. It was just mentioned that I got a tour this morning of Building Futures, which was truly remarkable, and you can see the difference that the labor movement, in partnership, of course, with management in the state, make in people's lives. And I actually welled up at one point listening to this young man talk about how a pathway, an open door, really, to a different and better life really took place because of that program. So I think that's a real tribute and shows that you're at the forefront of so many progressive initiatives in the state. And working Rhode Island, I think, you know, the mentoring, the Leadership Institute, Armand Sabatoni, a national officer, is here. So I think that's a tribute also to the work that you do. So thank you. And I don't need to tell you that these are challenging times for the labor movement, right? And it's an extremely challenging time for us, not only nationally, but you've been in the midst of it yourselves here in Rhode Island, but too many people are struggling to make ends meet in this country. Anyone here know someone who's unemployed? That's what I'm talking about, right? Someone who might be working more than one job if they are employed to pay bills, right? Someone who can't afford to send their kid to college, even though they have the grades to get in, but they can't find a way to pay for it. Working people have been struggling for far too long with stagnant wages while corporate profits are going nowhere but up, right? GE, we like to hold them up as the poster child. They don't pay any taxes, right? Big multinational corporations are shipping our jobs overseas, and you know that more than anyone. We aren't asking for much, though, are we? Working people aren't asking for much. What we want is simple. We want a fair shake, a fair shot. Is that asking too much? No. We want good pay. We want decent benefits, a voice on the job. We want the best education and training available so that we can move up. The American dream should be a ladder, not an obstacle course. And unfortunately, that ladder is out of reach for millions of Americans, and the rules of the economy are broken. And the corporate right-wing attacks are absolutely waging right now against the labor movement. And there are some sophisticated anti-worker campaigns going on throughout this country, more than we've ever seen. And we find ourselves under attack in essentially every state in the country, in some form or fashion. And whether it's in city halls or state legislatures and Congress, even the Supreme Court. I know we have a lot of folks here from the public sector. So I didn't come here to talk about the bad news. I don't want to be the downer to start things off. I think the good news is that we can stop them. How do we stop those attacks? Together. By working together in solidarity. And we can build an economy that works for all working people, but only if we speak with one voice. And you're doing that here in Rhode Island. And it's important, actually, to celebrate the successes. I think far too often we dwell on the negatives, right? A lot of people want to write the obituary of the labor movement. You know, a lot of bad news coming our way. But we got a lot of good news, too. But we often don't celebrate it. We often don't lift it up and talk about it enough. So I just want to pause for a moment and say in the last year, you know this, but laborers organized 500 dealers at Twin River Casino. All right? Workers at the tire recycling plant in New Bedford. It's close by, not in Rhode Island, but worth celebrating. Joining UFCW 328. 500 SEIU home care workers won a first contract. And 500 adjunct faculty at CCRI with NEARI. How about that? So, speaking of contracts, any guesses on how many union workers are negotiating contracts this year? Come on, you're awake. It's after lunch, but still. Help me out here. Any guesses? 300,000. 300,000? Maybe a little more? 500,000? 5 million workers in the country are negotiating contracts this year. This year! You think that's going to have an impact on the economy overall? Biggest year for bargaining in American history. And in this year, the first 6 months alone, working people in all kinds of jobs have won an average of pay increases of 4%. So I think that's going to have a ripple effect, right, in communities all across the country. And I think there are a number of folks at the table as we speak here in Rhode Island. I happen to know 1,000 workers at Verizon negotiating IBEW 2323. And it's the take it or leave it approach, right, with Verizon. Is that what we're experiencing? And nationally, I believe they have about 39,000 workers. And they are trying to eliminate job security, healthcare, increasing healthcare costs, slashing retirement benefits, reducing overtime pay, right? Meanwhile, the CEO makes in one day what the average worker makes in 1 year. Is that right? Does that sound right? And the bottom line, though, is this. We have helped companies like Verizon get through the hard times, right? Profits are now rising, and our wages and benefits should be rising with them, right? It's not so much to ask, I don't think. We need solidarity at a time like this, more than ever. And are we more likely to win a fight like this if we're all standing together, backing each other up? Okay, I see heads nodding. Hopefully you're with me. But we have to get support not just from the labor movement too, right? Because we're not big enough to just do it alone. We have to get support from groups outside the traditional labor movement as well. And that's why the Rhode Island AFL-CIO is forming new community partnerships along with you all throughout the state. And I know Fuerza Laboral was mentioned earlier, dynamic worker center that's actually speaking out against wage theft and misclassification, and I think has been involved in some organizing drives as well. And that coalition work and your laser focus on protecting and enforcing standards has led to a major breakthrough recently, I think as recently as Wednesday, The Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training ordered Mancieri Flooring to pay $331,000 in civil penalties, interest, back wages, and they are now banned from doing prevailing wage work, I believe, for 3 years, something to that effect. I don't know. I'm looking at the secretary here. So you have to feel good about that, the work that you're doing together. And I believe that, was it 17 employees were misclassified, and they were, known to be independent contractors, which was completely inaccurate. And I think that sends a message, though, when you have tough enforcement like that. It sends a clear message to every employer that if you steal workers' wages, you're going to pay the price. Bottom line. And so I want to thank the governor, who's sitting right here in front of me. Thank you, thank you, thank you for promoting fairness and justice in the workplace. And it's also great to see a strong woman at the helm of the state. We need more women in leadership. We need more women in public office. We need more women in our union leadership as well. And so it's really great to see that after 20 years, the state Fed is reestablishing its chapter of the Coalition of Labor Union Women. Raise your hand if you're new charter members. Excellent. And I want to thank Maureen, of course, for her leadership in this. And it is a big deal. A big deal. Because we know that women in unions are more likely to have equal pay, more likely to have fair schedules, and paid leave, and the list goes on and on. And we need each other. The labor movement represents 6.5 million women in this country. I like to say we're the largest women's organization in the country. That's right. But we need to make it even bigger. And so the CLUE chapter in Rhode Island is going to be focusing, I believe, on Buy America to get started, and they're really aligning their priorities with the labor movement's priorities and integrating that agenda into the overall labor agenda, and I think that's fantastic. And we know the workplace is changing. We got 50% women in the workplace, and in 10 years, the labor movement will be 50% women. Can I repeat that? In 10 years, women will be half the labor movement. So if we're not reaching out to women and growing our leadership ranks of women, then we are missing the boat. And it's all about growth, right? We're all worried about the labor movement's future. And so where are we going to be growing? Women, people of color, young people. Right? Today's young workers are actually part of the largest generation to enter the workforce since the baby boomers. And they will be 75% of the global workforce by 2025. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, I'm the Secretary Treasurer. But 75% of the global workforce will be the millennial generation. So this is another area where we are paying a lot of attention because they make up the most diverse and technologically savvy generation in America's history. But younger workers actually suffer the nation's highest unemployment levels, about twice the national average, and the fewest job opportunities in the economy. And how many of them do you think are in unions at this point? Any guesses? I gotta keep you awake. Not enough, absolutely. 7%. We're losing our connection with this next generation, primarily because of the decline in our density. Nobody knows anyone in a union anymore, right? We gotta make that change. But despite all that bad news, there was a recent Gallup poll that said young people I think it's almost 60% of young people think unions are necessary. Do you think that's a good organizing opportunity? Absolutely, and we've been doing everything we can at the National AFL-CIO with our Next Step program to engage and mobilize and educate and inspire young people in the labor movement. So, Maureen mentioned that I have an ask. First of all, I'm going to ask you to stand. If you can't stand, just raise your hand. All right, sit down if you're over 40. I just outed you, by the way. Sorry about that. Sit down if you're over 35. So in other words, the young people will be left standing if you can't do the math. Okay, so this is our next generation of leadership here in the room. How are the numbers looking? They're looking pretty good. Could be better, right? What do you think? So I think the charge here is to give you can sit down, young people. You had your moment in the sun. Our charge here is to give young people in our movement a space. And we've been forming young worker groups through our central labor councils and state feds all throughout the country. We have a network of young people that are hubs for economic activism and for political activism and organizing. So I would challenge you, I'm looking right at George, to think about and encourage you strongly to develop a young worker organization here through the AFL-CIO, and that way we have actually all sectors and all unions coming together with their young people to build program and actually move this labor movement forward. So what do you think? Are you up for it? All right. So I know you have a passion for change and for moving this labor movement forward and leading the way, and the latest example of that was Fast Track. And I just want to thank you for all the phone calls and the emails and the text messages and the social media and all that you did to weigh in the Fast Track fight. It was a close fight. And we were this close. We were just a few votes short of defeating Fast Track. And it changed the trade debate forever. It was historic. We had every union, AFL-CIO, outside the AFL-CIO, cross sectors, come together against Fast Track. And we came together to say enough is enough. Bad trade deals that ship our jobs overseas, enough. Enough of those bad trade deals that actually leave our families and our communities in despair. And when we fought against Fast Track, we were fighting for the American dream. And we had great champions here in the state of Rhode Island, right? Representatives Jim Langevin, David Cicilline. We had Senators Jack Reed and Sheldon Whitehouse right there standing with us. And even though they're standing with us, it's so important, and you do this to weigh in and tell them what this means for us, because we can't take any votes for granted, right? And so we appreciate their commitment to working families, and we're going to ask them to come through once again to vote against TPP when it comes to the floor for a vote. And the Washington elite, I'm telling you, they thought this was a slam dunk. And we were up against the President of the United States as the chief lobbyist. It's kind of a formidable opponent, wouldn't you say? Right? He was giving Congress people rides on Air Force One to try to lobby them for their vote, right? And it was amazing. We actually had a few members actually flip their votes after riding on Air Force One, right? So those were the tools at his disposal, and they thought it would be finished by now. The negotiators just only reached an agreement just recently, months after they were expected to finish it. And last week, we had a big game changer when Hillary Clinton came out against TPP. You did that. The work that the labor movement did made that happen. That's right. So we're going to ask you to weigh in once again when the TPP comes up for a final vote. Weigh in with your elected officials so that they weigh in with their colleagues, right? They can put pressure on the folks that are soft on the issue. So let's do that. And then we also have a city ordinance, I believe, a resolution that's going to ask you to get down to the city level and actually try to pass resolutions at your towns, your city councils, and you'll get to that later today. But I just want to say thank you in advance for pulling out all the stops to fight TPP. So thank you. And the unity that we formed around fighting Fast Track, we need to apply that unity to every other challenge that we're seeing facing us in the labor movement: organizing, bargaining, politics, community engagement. Because solidarity works. Solidarity works. And if we stand united, we can raise wages and help working people get paid time off when they're sick. And if we stand together, we can finally guarantee women equal pay for equal work. And if we stand united, we can win fair overtime rules and fair scheduling laws so that workers have the time and the money to care for their families. And if we stand united, we can make it easier to form a union and bargain collectively and make it harder for employers to deny us those rights. And if we stand united, we can defeat TPP and start investing in working men and women again. And finally, if we stand united, we can build an America of shared prosperity that gives every one of us the opportunity for a better life. Let's get to work. Thank you.
President of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, proud to be here with our brothers and sisters from UFCW Local 328. These are the kinds of moments when people understand what the labor movement is all about. This is about fair wages, about a voice on the job, about being treated fairly, and these workers deserve that right. And unfortunately, what's been happening is that we have companies like this that are undercutting the wages in the community. And what we really need to do is start getting people to understand the connection between the middle class and the labor movement. If we don't have people getting good wages, good benefits, job security, then the whole economy suffers. And so this is an opportunity to bring the message out, both to the workers who work here and to the public, that it's the labor movement that is built this country, and it's the labor movement that's going to be the salvation of this country. So, go Union!
Hi, I'm Tim Mealy. I'm the president of UFCW Local 328. We are here today to get the community to support the workers of Price Right. Price Right for years has been underpaying their employees with low wages and inadequate benefits. So we're out here getting the community aware of what type of employer Price Right is in their neighborhood. This is a company that is double-breasted. Half of their company is union and half of their company isn't union. They will not let these employees in here join a union. They pressure them, they intimidate them, they fire them, they cut their wages. It's unfair, it's un-American. This has to stop. So we're here making the community aware of what type of employer Price Right is. So hopefully we'll get the people inside there and get them a fair wage and good benefits for the work that they do for this employer.
Jim Riley, Secretary Treasurer, USCW Local 328. We're here to tell Price Right that the time for change is now. Working together, we can improve the lives of Price Right workers, their families, and the community. Sadly, Price Right workers struggle every day with wages and benefits even lower than that of Walmart. We say that Price Right should value the well-being of their employees and to reward them, not give them, but reward them with the wage increases because they earn them. Better wage increases and better benefits. Price Right runs 58 stores in 8 states. Every day, workers have to deal with low wages, no paid leave, no benefits, and very poor employment laws. We're asking, this is not an organizing campaign here today. We're here to tell Price Right to get it done and get it now. Improve the betterment of their own employees and improve the community also. Thank you.
I'm Liz Schuler, Secretary Treasurer of the National AFL-CIO out of Washington, D.C., and I'm here walking the picket line in solidarity with UFCW Local 328, fighting for better wages at Price Right. And we just want to pressure, I think, the community, the The labor movement is standing up for better wages for workers in this area of Providence and actually all over the state and throughout the country in the retail sector. We know the challenges that workers are facing. It's low wages, it's scheduling that's insecure, it's lack of benefits, and we know that when we stand together in solidarity as working people, that we can make things better for everyone. So we just want to let folks know that the labor movement, not just UFCW, but the entire labor movement is standing strong for working people at Price Right and beyond.
Trying so hard to get them all. We got schooling. Yeah, they have a lawyer. I don't know. He was the city.
Hey, who's moving over there? You gotta move like a picket line. Move like a picket line. They're breaking our ball. Move like a picket line. Okay.
Hey, Jesse.
Good luck.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.